Hey team, Mr. Lackey here with just a quick tutorial here on one of our final virtual assignments of the fall semester. We are going to use a Gizmo, and I know that back in middle school and biology you guys used Gizmo a lot, and you probably still have a login, but if you haven't used one yet this year, it has changed just slightly. So let's go ahead. I'm going to look at the document that you guys are opening up for this Gizmo. Looking at this document, there is a link right at the top of it, and you have to log in differently this year because the district changed something on the technology end of things. So all you got to do is go ahead right where it says click on this link, click the link if you're opening it in a document, or I will post the link right in the folder as well. When you get there, for me, it logs me in because I've logged in before. If you've never used it before, it might prompt you to log in. Make sure you're using your school username and password. Once you do, though, you'll see a page that looks something like this. Once you get here, you're going to go ahead and scroll down until you get to this Gizmo symbol. All right. When you get there, you're going to click to it, and because you click to it through your school account, it's going to auto log you into my class. Now, this is a teacher page here, and you can see it's got all of my classes here on the left. But for you, it'll probably just have the one class, zoology, whatever period you're in, right? Ideally, if it logged you in correctly, when you log in, you're going to see over here, you're just going to see this thing that says Coral Reefs 2, Biotic Factors. That's the thing we want to look at. So you got to click it to launch it. I will say this will probably work better on a Chromebook or a desktop computer compared to your phone. I would assume it's going to work a lot better on those. All right, so once it starts playing, I'm going to full screen it so you can see a little bit better. I just want to highlight a couple of the things that you're really going to be using here. Up here, two tabs at the top that are pretty important. You have Coral Reef and you have data. Right now, there is no data because we haven't done anything yet. The way this Coral Reef works is we basically just can change a whole bunch of different things. So for example, I can change the ocean conditions. So let's say I wanted to see, okay, if this is what the Coral Reef looks like right now, if storms get worse over time, let's say they get twice as bad, I can advance the year, and every time I click, you can see the year goes up. So time goes on, and we can see if there's some changes to the reef or not. When I'm looking at this coral reef picture, I'm not seeing big changes. That's another good reason you want to actually click on this data tab. So now when I look at the data tab, it's showing me that over time, most things were looking about the same, but this red line, staghorn coral, it's actually dropped down to 50% of where it started. So remember, 100% will be where it started, and this is showing over time, even though these other three species, the coral, the boulder star, the sponges, the algae, those ones, these three have stayed constant. The staghorn coral has started to fall off. So it wasn't easy for me to see that on this tab. It's a lot easier when I look at the data tab. Lots of the questions that I ask you on this handout, the data tab will be really helpful. Some of the other things I actually, on the data tab, I want to point out, I don't ask you to look at these other species. These are mainly like secondary effects. So like, how does the yellowtail snapper affected by the changes in the coral and the sponges, right? If you want to look at these different animals and see how they're affected by the changes, you can do that. But almost every question I ask is based on this default of these four over here. I also want to point out, most of the questions that I ask you to go for 50 years. You need to hit this minus button to zoom out on the graph. Now you can see it shows for 50 years. So it looks like I've only clicked 44 years. So I can do a few more clicks. Now I've advanced 50 years. So if the question asked, you know, how does increased storm severity affect it? I'd say over 50 years, you know, the coral, the two coral species start to drop off pretty heavily, whereas the algae and the sponges aren't very affected. In fact, they're both improving just slightly. A few of the other questions that I ask you, so several of them are right here in the ocean conditions setting. I also ask you to go to the land use setting as well as the invasive species setting and play around with things on there. Remember that for most of these, I'll even say on there, if I said, okay, now that you've tested storm severity, check out ocean temperature. What you need to do is you have to click restart, send year back to 0, and then return to the original settings, right? I want to send storm severity back to where it started so that if I'm testing ocean temperature, I'm not also seeing the effect of storm severity. right? So now I can raise it, 5 degrees, and I can click advance year and see what happens as the years progress, right? So those are the main things I need you to know. Another thing that you can see over here in this tab that says summary, sometimes it'll like write up in there. It'll kind of give you a description of what's going on. So it'll give you a description of where you're at. So actually, let me go ahead back to conditions. If I say advanced year, oops, that didn't work. Let's raise the temperature a few degrees and advance the year. Okay, now I'm 10 years along. If I go to summary, it just says coral cover is medium. So 10 years after the temperature is raised, it's telling me that's what happens in 10 years is the coral cover has really dropped off compared to at the beginning. If I restart all my original settings, at the beginning it says, oh, the coral reef is healthy, no bleaching, no disease, fish diversity is high, and coral cover is high. So there's lots of tabs around here that can give you nice write-ups for this handout. But I think I've shown you most of the things that you need to know in order to complete it. If you're having trouble logging in or having trouble playing it on your computer, make sure you shoot me an email. Otherwise, I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. Thanks.